Thank you, Joni, for very generous words. What I'll be doing is, in about 45 minutes, taking you through central themes of my book, Awakening Global Enlightenment. I mean, so it's an amazing idea to even mention those words, global enlightenment. Enlightenment is challenging enough, but to think of global enlightenment, what does that mean? What could it possibly mean? And I just would like you to continue in the opening themes. This is not a lecture, it's a meditation. Because if you're going to go into the space of enlightenment, you can't talk about it. Somehow you have to manifest it. That's why I ask all of you to help hold the space and the intention to open up the light together in a collaborative space. I'll be going up on the stage to that flip chart to do some improv PowerPoints, visualizations in the spirit of the meditation, because what I'm going to do is outrageous. I'm going to seek to look back and forth over the last 3,000 years. What has been happening on this planet with our great spiritual geniuses, whom we call enlightened, across the planet? Looking into Chinese Lao Tzu, looking into the Vedic tradition, into the Bhagavad Gita, into the breakthrough of Buddha, into the fantastic breakthroughs of Abraham, and Moses, Jesus, Mohammed. I'm just mentioning a few. Thinking of Socrates and Plato and Aristotle, and the centuries of evolution of the wisdom in the European tradition, spawned by heroes like Socrates. It's all has to do with enlightenment. Is it possible that they're all resonating, although differently, and we have to respect the differences? They're speaking differently, in different cultures, different traditions, different modalities. But is it possible that if we stood back, could stand back, and this is already a problem wherever we are in our culture, and it could be a complex cultural journey. We could be living in multiple worlds right now, and we are. But whatever our cultural lens, we tend to see everything in our world from that lens. And therefore, it's hard to get a global vision. So seeking to open and dilate the mind and the heart to enter into global vision, holistic, integral vision, that's extremely difficult to step back, but at least we need to do that, to go into the global space and dilate and say, look, can we see and resonate to these great enlightenment teachers? And look fast forward at the enormous, painful, and ecstatic moments that they've had over centuries to bring us to where we are now. Could it be that they're all resonating on a common theme? Could it be that they aren't? They've got to be. And so what I'm going to be doing is to give some visualizations to try and open up that global space. And to listen to the voices of these wisdom teachers and enlightenment. And if we can do that, if we could step into this open space, astounding patterns come into relief that we couldn't see before. Astounding and sensational disclosures. How could we not see this? And that's really what I would like to sketch. So let me just make a transition up on the stage here. I'm going to take the shortcut. And if we can get a light here, is it possible to get a light? Let there be light. Thank you. So, bear with me. I'm going to go quite fast, and I have to juggle this and make sure this doesn't topple over. So help me out with this, please. So what I'm going to do in this meditative visualization is to show you somehow and suggest that our enlightenment teachers across the planet have all been gesturing in different ways to this space at the top of the page. And yet, I'll try to show that humanity in our evolutionary development have been in a certain space that was a certain script and consciousness and lens and level of life that we've been living. And our great teachers in their different ways have been calling us to step back and step up and raise the level of our literacy to a higher integral script. And yet, despite those callings from this space of what will be the unified field of fundamental reality. And this is where Andrew and I resonate in terms of the ground of being, whatever name you call it, right? That is driving and calling and imploring the evolutionary impulse, right? That there are two different levels of language, consciousness, and script. And we're going to find a way to mark them out. That's really what I want to give a very fast-forward reflection on. So I'm going to do a series of slides and flip them over and try to evolve this story. It involves really going through a portal. Most of us are living in an ego-based culture, an ego-based script, and we're not even aware of it sufficiently. And I don't mean just the ego, because a whole culture can share it, a tradition can share it, a religion can share it. The script is a stage of our evolution. As great as it is, it hits a barrier. And our great genius, enlightened teachers saw that that level of script, an ego-based script, whether you call it living in the cave, or living in sin, or living in samsara, whatever name you use, it's being cut off from the flow of a deep, flowing reality field. And the call of enlightenment across the planet through the ages has been, folks, upscript. And if we don't upscript, we stay here. If we downscript, if we listen to our teachers and pull it into this level of language, we're missing the medical and medicinal power of enlightenment teaching. What did I say that? Because we think of whatever you think of enlightenment, it sounds as if it's something like esoteric and for a few elite, blessed people. And that's true in a way. But what all of these great teachers saw when they were teaching, when Buddha awakened, he brought it to the people. When Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita is coaching Arjuna, the warrior who is broken down on the battlefield in a fratricidal war, he's bringing it to the people. And Gandhi picked up on that. For example, enlightenment is meant for humans, for all of us. The democratization of enlightenment. It was all when Jesus spoke in his enlightenment, saying strange things in the script, I am the way, the truth, and the life, which is a different script than the script that we do. We can't understand it. And he got impatient. He says, for those who have ears, let them hear. What are those ears that are open to enlightenment? And on we hear that the breakthroughs, the great breakthroughs in history of enlightenment is a call to a higher script. And yet we tend to keep it, and the only way we know is to interpret it in our language, in our script. And that's been the barrier. There's a profound barrier. So what we find is that if it's a Tao, in the Chinese wisdom and enlightenment, where Lao Tzu begins, the Tao that is named is not the Tao. This is the place we name, and so this is a script we have. And the voice of Tao, the teaching of Tao, what is Tao? It's the infinite script. It's the infinite force. It's the infinite energy. It's the infinite. And therefore it's going to be infinite in every dimension. It's going to be infinitely good, infinitely intelligent, infinite in every possible way. Or if you go into the Om, into the Vedic teachings of the great yogis who moved into the place of enlightenment and understood in their meditation. And this is not meditation space, but when you meditate, you take the mind into the space of the unified field. And what do you find? Well, the Vedic, which means knowledge, saw that all is Om. What is Om? Infinite script, the infinite symbol. It generates all names and forms and everything that could appear. The entire code of the universe is coded in Om. And it opens up into Brahman and Vishnu and Shiva, and it opens up into the universe. And the Maya that comes forth and the power of creativity out of the Om. But again, this Om cannot be named in our ordinary language where our culture is. Here we are, I. And this is the screen of our consciousness. And we've been focused here. This is where we want to learn our script. How do we script? What do we do? Well, we join ideas together. That's what thinking is, to think. And the technical word in philosophy is to predicate. To think is to predicate. What? You take a subject and a predicate, a property, you join them. That's what thinking is. I am cold, I am hungry, I am thirsty. Sun is shining, grass is green. Haverford is a college, America is on demo. It's all going on here. And the spotlight has been, how do we predicate? What is the magic of predication? Because if we start to scramble our predications very quickly, you begin to see there's an alchemy going on here, because how do I know which subjects and predicates blend to make sense? If I take the number 7 and I say 7 is blue, well, that's odd. 7 is not in space and time. You can't apply color to it. So if you join those two ideas, you get nonsense. You can't think it. It's unthinkable. When you cross cultures, you have a very different grammar of putting those ideas together. If you go into the Hindu world, samsara, nirvana, karma, dharma, prana, those words are not available in the European, in French or German, Swahili, and other. It's a different world. So when you go into the world of the Buddha, it's a different way to think. If you go into the world of science, and you have the Big Bang, and you go into the world of the Bible, and you've got Genesis, those are different thought places, different worlds. So humans live in different worlds. And what is a world? It's a whole different grammar of your culture that allows you to think and put ideas together. This has been the hotspot. And yet our teachers have been saying, don't get stuck here, because something is going on here that's holding us back. That's what this line represents. Somehow, when we're using this technology of culture and language and literacy, it's blocking and cutting us off from a deeper literacy that is Taoish and Omish and Yahweh-ish and Shunyata and on, all the great names for this fundamental infinite force. So if we just keep going, the Buddha was Shunyata. I'm scribbling a bit. Shunyata. Shunya means zero in Sanskrit. And when Buddha awoke, a great moment in enlightenment, one of the models of it. I'm jumping, I know I'll be coming back, but I'm just trying to open up this theme between these two scripts. Buddha's great enlightenment, he was a Hindu prince, but he wasn't satisfied with the talk about Brahman and Atman and the self, because he felt it kept us here. And so when he went through and left his family and went into every austerity and all the best schools of the day, he went off his own and said, I still haven't found it. And the legend goes, he sat under the Bodhi tree and said, I'm not getting up until I see why people suffer. The point is, he saw that people were suffering. And not just in terms of poverty and age and disease and all of that, but existential suffering, having crisis of meaning, feeling meaninglessness and nihility and emptiness in their lives. They were ontologically suffering, and he wanted to understand why. And that was his awakening. And then when he woke up in an enlightenment moment, one of the great classic moments for the planet, he articulated in 4 axioms or truths, the 4 noble truths. Existence is suffering. It has a cause. Somehow it's associated with our consciousness, with me, the way I'm using my mind. I have a choice. I don't have to use my mind this way. I don't have to be in the script that my culture has given me. That's the 3rd axiom. Existence is suffering. It has a cause. Namely, I am somehow doing something that's at the heart of that suffering. I have a choice. And the 4th noble truth is, I can do something about it. I can rehabilitate my mind. And that's what the Eightfold Path is. The 4th noble truth is, here's the prescription for breaking the barrier of suffering. I can live a mindful life. Mindful in every way, 24/7. Mindful in my action, in my thoughts, in my intentions, in my judgment, in my understanding, in every way. And if I can practice that 24/7, day after day, I will rehabilitate, regenerate, and open up my nature and become enter the space of emptiness. And Andrew is going to touch on this theme as well, of going into the source. But the point is, this pathway of Buddha is not articulable here. It is a different language, the language of shunyata, the language of emptiness. And you might ask, what is that? What script is Buddha's script? And it wasn't easy, because the first 600 years of Buddha's teaching, his disciples were continuing to say, oh, the Buddha said there's no substance. It must have been a property. Existence is made up of properties, but here. And so trying to get a theory to explain Buddha's teaching. Until Nagarjuna, the genius, comes along about 150 AD and said no to his teachers, take the middle way. Beyond is and isn't. Out of the space, into the space of emptiness. That's where you live a mindful life. That's where you mature. And that was the Madhyamika, the middle way philosophy and teaching to get to the enlightenment of Buddha. So what I'm suggesting is, even though the genius of Buddha was there, it took centuries of struggle to get to what did he say, and to get the script and to shift the script. So that people would say, oh, who is the Buddha? And they'll try to, let's try to talk about the Buddha right here. This is getting messy, I'm sorry. But it's a messy situation. And who is the Buddha? And ask questions like that. And then you realize, wait a minute. The Buddha is not an entity. What is the Buddha? An energy. The Buddha is an energy. What energy? Is it an atomic, separate? No, it's tied into the entire unified field. So the Buddha is the Dharma, the law. The Buddha is the Sangha, the polis, the community. There is no Buddha. If you see the Buddha, kill him. It was said as a therapy. Stop objectifying. When you're here in this script, you talk about it. You, the thinker, separated from flow, talk about an object and you objectify, and objectification breaks all the circuits and fragments, and it shows up in the broken psyche in all kinds of ways. That was the source of the suffering that Buddha was healing. So if you try to listen to Buddha and downscript the script here, you blow it. You lose the medicinal, therapeutic, healing power of Buddha's enlightenment. So I'm trying to say, enlightenment is no light matter. We can't say, oh, it's nice for a Buddha, nice for a Jesus, nice for Krishna to be enlightened. We can't afford to do that. Enlightenment is not a luxury that we can't afford to tend to. It's a necessity that we can't afford not to engage now. Because enlightenment is our human destiny, awakening as humans, maturing as humans, out of the place of suffering where we manufacture profound dysfunctions in every aspect of our lives. That's what the Enlightenment teachers are seeing. They saw that as long as people remained at this level of scripting and culture, it's going to be fragmented in all directions. Cultures are going to be at war. There are all different cultures here. Worldviews, all using this and battling it out. Even if the children of Abraham, the Judaic tradition, Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, on and on, atheists, scientists, whatever the worldview, and this is the point, one of the points I'm making, worldviews are profoundly different. They're worlds apart. Worlds are worlds apart. And that's why you get 9/11s and Holocausts and genocides, ethnic cleansing. That's why relationships between people break down in violence. Love relationships crumble in divorce. We objectify our children. We objectify one another. And yet all of our great teachers and all of ethics is saying, never objectify a human being. Persons are sacred. Don't treat them as objects. So good people living in this script don't intend to violate one another. But when you're using that lens and you objectify what you think about, whatever it is, unintentionally, you're violating the other. And as this place matured, and part of the evolutionary journey is as this script enriched over the centuries, through the great teachings, struggling to be articulated and to be heard, you began to see that this is a place of dialogue. This is where the I, if you can cross from here, from this I into this, and open and drop the ID. Your ID is your predication story. That's called karma, by the way. Karma is what you encode yourself, the information that when you process yourself here in this now messy situation, right? Think of what you say. We're going to have coffee together. And I said, tell me about yourself. Well, I'm a professor, I'm at Haverford College, I'm a male, I'm on the varsity, and this. And I give you all of my predications. I have my story. I am my story. And my story is played out here. And I, this bundle of information that is I, that separates me, that's really what's called ego-based. But don't be deflected by the ego. It's not only the ego that's the problem. It's a technology of consciousness that we're using, because the way this language works, it's by the law of identity. That A is A. A thing is what it is. A pen is the pen. The plant is the plant. I am me. The glass is the glass. One name, one thing, one identity. That's how it works. So imagine if I'm living by the law of identity, that's what Buddha saw was a law of suffering. Buying in naively to naive identity, that a thing is named and therefore it has its own identity and being in itself. That's what causes this cut from in the high place of the unified field of being, where Buddha saw everything co-arises. In this field, everything touches and co-arises with the other. That's the power of emptiness, or shunyata. It's empty of the brokenness and the broken names and the technology that objectifies, and takes you into a dialogue flow, in the zone, as athletes would say, where you're flowing in the moment. And space and time and cause and substance and color and figure and texture and motion all flow. Mind and body flow. Here they're broken, mind-body. So mind-body medicine is attempting to break the barrier of the space that's fragments, pieces of our world and our psyche and our reality. So to get into mind-body, to get into space-time, to go into the space that enlightenment is dilating, opening up. So this is outrageous. But this infinite space, this is the key. This place is called the place of duality, because everything is dualized. And it shows up in your psyche, in your life, in your relationships. Because as much as you intend to your lover is going to be an object to you. Whereas if you can cross, and this is all of the Enlightenment teachers say, you've got to move into the space where there's the basic field of reality, where everything is interactively, dynamically connected and flowing. What would the script be like for that? How dare I say I? And I use double parentheses to mark, and we need to somehow find a way, since this is apparently so important for the journey of enlightenment, that if this script is what's retarding me and holding me back, let me call it out. In whatever world, I could be in science, I could be in biblical, I could be whatever, American citizen, whatever world I'm in, if I'm using this script, it's an equal opportunity script. Equal opportunity to be cut off. And if I'm using that, I need to know it and call it out. Let me give a quotation mark so I'll remind myself. And I use single strokes. Whatever word it is, including I, when you're here, use single strokes. That's what I do. And this came very painfully for me in an evolutionary journey over 50 years as a logician and ontologist. That's my field. I'm trained in logic and analytic, mathematical logic and philosophy, the deepest level of philosophy that tries to understand the ultimate DNA code of this script. And out of that logic, when logic understands that you need to really mark your notation, your language. So out of that, when I began to explore these great wisdom traditions and listen to them and step outside of any one font and try to open up the space and listen, it became astounding to me. I felt there's got to be a way to mark it. Make a notation so we can know that when you listen to Buddha, you've got to listen to it, in a different space, a different dimension than where we are. If I take this down here, I lose it. So over 30 years, I've been trying to understand and decode how do words function here in this space? Why is this space such a magnet to pull it down so that if you hear from Yahweh, don't write the name, and yet we write it. And if you write it here, then someone like Nietzsche is going to say God is dead. And the Christians have killed him. It sounds outrageous. But the point is all of these traditions says, don't take this down here. The Tao that is named is not the Tao. The Om that is written in the ego mind is not Om. So in the Bhagavad Gita, this great text of enlightenment, Krishna, the voice of Om, the incarnation of Vishnu, is in dialogue with Arjuna, the warrior who was broken down on the battlefield in an fratricidal war. And he looks at his people and said, I can't kill my own people, Krishna, help me. His world crumbled in the midlife crisis, an ontological crisis in the battlefield, which is good. Because now Krishna understood, now you're ready for the journey, Arjuna. And so Arjuna said, Krishna, help me, I'm done. And he drops his weapon, which is a suicidal act. And then the dialogue begins, book 1, chapter 1. And Krishna teaches him, knowing it's time for Arjuna to break the samsara. Because once you're in this space, it's a magnetic field. It's so powerful. It holds individuals and humanity and generations captive. That's samsara. Lifetime after lifetime. Even death doesn't remove that bundle of information that you've made yourself into, which is your karma. You've got to somehow burn it up. How do you do that? Well, that's Krishna teaches Arjuna yoga. What is yoga? Yoga is the science of joining yourself, having a reunion, to reunite with yourself. The brokenness between this self and this one is calling for resolution. So if you reach through the teachings of Krishna, it's a strategy of enlightenment to retool your mind by letting go, and this is extremely difficult. I'm not trying to make it sound like a piece of cake. The journey from here to there is enormously challenging and scary. All the teachers knew it, of enlightenment. You have to go almost through a dying to be born again, as Jesus put it. How do you let go of your identity? It's who you are. You can't just snap your finger and step back away from your story. You are your story. You are your ID. And to have enlightenment call you to dare to say, let it go, so that you could somehow then enjoy and open up to the abundance of life and love and compassion and interactivity and intimacy and all the beautiful, joyous, good things, as it said here, Sat Chit Ananda, consciousness, being, bliss, same word. There's a reason why those words are used in all of the traditions. When you say God is good, it doesn't mean God has a predicate of good. It means God is goodness. Why? Because the infinite force is infinitely unifying and creates the deepest possible harmony beyond the imagination of this mind. Everything is so profoundly interactively united in the infinite field of unity. But how many of these unities are there? How many infinites are there? Well, if you think it through, and maybe you've not done this yet in your life, there can only be one. There's a basic elementary science. How many infinites? One. Why? Because the infinite origin cannot be more than one, because if there was another, it would not be infinite. It would be finitized by the other. And therefore it's got to be one. Well, that infinite, how diverse is it? Infinitely diverse. What does that mean? It's filled with boundless possibilities. So what? So each of us is a unique PowerPoint in that field, a unique miracle. But it gets covered over and lost when we're living in this space. That's why it's called the cave, or very strong language in the biblical tradition, sin. Or whatever you think of sin, I don't want to get there. I'm speaking as a logician and ontologist. Sin is a medical diagnosis, deeper than just being bad, Adam and Eve. It's not just disobeying or just being bad. It's profoundly different and much worse. It means sin is a severance and being cut off from the field of reality and flow. And that's why it said that the wage of sin is death. Or the great fall in the biblical story of Adam and Eve falling because they wanted to eat the fruit of knowledge of good and evil. What's the fruit? The object. Why? What was the temptation? Because you can allegedly be as God. Which means what? I'm an independently existing being. I don't need anything else. I don't need some first infinite force to hang with. So I'm just trying to fast forward. I'm doing a lot of evolutionary history across these traditions to give a sense of the resonance of this powerful space and the script that has been missing. So when you go with the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna, chapter after chapter, attempts to educate Arjuna, us, the ego person, and Arjuna bitches and screams all the way. When Krishna speaks this language, he has no clue what he's saying. And so the beginning of chapter 3, Krishna, you're messing with my mind. I want an answer, and you're telling me that intelligence is superior to action, and then you say, pick up my weapon and act, but how can I act with intelligence? Which one is it? Intelligence and wisdom and enlightenment, or action? What do you want of me? And Krishna smiles. Not smugly, but benevolently, because Krishna knows that Arjuna is still in the old dual, broken, polarizing mentality. And he's got to be educated in the script of enlightenment. And so chapter after chapter of the Gita is giving him more tools and literacy and competence to handle the unified field of Om, which is the field of reality, where you become a martial artist and blossom as a full self, and that is the awakened self. And that is a journey of the Bhagavad Gita. It's still chapter 11, if you peek ahead, where Arjuna is finally beginning to get comfortable with Krishna and says, Krishna, could you let me see you now? I am ready to see the field of... And Krishna has a nice intimate moment with him. It's very endearing. He says, Krishna, Arjuna, I don't do this with everyone, but you, I'm going to let you in. I'm going to open your third eye. I call it the first eye, because it's not 1, 2, 3. It's 1, 2, 3. The first eye. So Krishna says, touches and says, I open your global eye, your enlightenment eye. And then Arjuna is blown away. It's amazing. If you read that, you say, OMG. Says Arjuna, you know what I mean? I see you everywhere. You're in everything. You know, that's typical of opening up the script. You need the script to process it. Otherwise, you blow your mind. And so you have to be educated with the literacy and competence to handle the unified field. And that's really what I've been giving hints of. I can go on and on. I mean, so when, think of the biblical origins with Abraham. If you see Abraham in this light, it was a heroic moment for the planet of enlightenment. Because God, Yahweh, and you don't write the name, was saying to the people, love me with all you got. That's all I ask, just love me. With all your heart, mind, and soul, everything you've got, love me. Why? Because the infinite source and origin is a source, and you've got to honor it. And if you end up here putting your own agenda first, you're eclipsing the honoring of what is first. And therefore everything is out of kilter. And so the call of when Abraham, like Arjuna, was here, and he has this Isaac, his prized son, which was symbolic of his ego identity of my agenda. The call was saying, love me above all. So when Abraham struggled with that, do I let go of this and put that first? And he did. For humanity, he said, you are first. I will sacrifice. Isaac, which is himself, he was sacrificing his identity. He was letting it go. The symbolic act ontologically of letting go of your story and your agenda and your values and your prioritizing your world and your worldview above that is a sacrifice. And when Moses is at the mountain in the burning bush, and here's the burning bush, hearing the laws to take to the people, that is a moment in the space. And yet we tend to write the laws and follow them as rules. And so it's not going to go away. The call of this field is so profound in every moment that a Jesus will come along and say, the law is a law of love, and you've got to live it in your heart. I am the way. I am the truth. You could write truth. Truth is usually a sentence that talks about grass is green, there is the grass. It's true. So how can a being who allegedly speaks from the high Christ space be the truth and be the life? It's a different script. So in a way, if you see the life of Jesus in this way, as a living enlightenment embodied, to keep moving and calling the people to upscript. It's to die for. So when Jesus was leaving and he's giving rituals of rites of passage, he says, take this bread and eat it mindful of me. How can you turn bread? I've got to flip this page, if you don't mind. You're probably, next slide please, you're probably relieved. How can you take this bread and make it into bread? How can you take this wine and make it into wine or the blood of Logos? Now, what did Logos appear there? Okay, I've made a jump. Okay, because if I continue, I'm watching the time, and I'm going to wrap this up in a moment, but I just want to open this up, that all of these great names, Yahweh, Christ, Allah, and even, of course, even science is attempting to get to the unified field. So when Einstein saw the space and time language of Newton, and he went to the space-time continuum, E equals mc squared, he was beginning to touch into the physics of the deeper unified field of nature. Nature is here. The language of science is breaking out of the old script. It needs a more powerful script. Why? Because this field, this infinite field of nature, where everything is interactive, has a very strange logic. You're discovering things like the butterfly effect. What is that? That any motion of the butterfly's wings in the rainforest of Brazil is connected with the typhoon in the Pacific. For example, it's all connected. So causation cannot be understood. The causation, double brackets, I use double parentheses to mark it. You should be getting at what I'm giving you examples of is all the geniuses have been pointing from this script to a higher script, and you need to mark it out because if you name it down here, you blow it. Think of it, could this be the case? And so what we need to see, that this first picture that I've given is that there's a space that we seem to be captivated by, hitting a barrier that's across the planet. It's a dimensional shift to go into the Enlightenment script. If you try to bring Enlightenment here, you blow it, you neutralize it, you undermine it. Not only undermine it, but undermine it. It needs a more powerful, dilated, awakened script, lens, and mind in order to get it, for the medicine to work, and to find the place of bliss and maturation and flourishing as a moral, awakened, aesthetic, erotic human being. And that's really what I'm just trying to bring out here. So it can look awfully difficult. So how do I go from this eye to this eye? And I can give you so many examples of, what do you mean this eye? This with a double parentheses. Where did that come from? Well, if you take an example, just give of Descartes' meditations, a genius. We don't think of him in the Enlightenment tradition, but he was doing something in his meditations. Amazing. This mathematical, he developed analytical geometry, genius, saw that he could question every belief he has in his life. He could be dreaming. It could be wrong. Even math could be wrong. 2 + 2 = 4. That could be wrong. Why? Because what if there is a demonic negative energy tricking me to believe it's true when it's false? And that could sound paranoid. But Freud would say, wait a minute, what if there's an unconscious force within your psyche, that you're not aware of, that's working on your unconscious energy? You could be the deceiver yourself in self-deception. So Descartes was doing something for humanity to say, I could question all of in this script. It's not worthy, it's not trustworthy. I'm not on the ground. He wanted the foundations of knowledge. What happened? When he gutted that out, he was scared because he dropped all of his structures. He dropped his ID. He said, I'm dropping my mind, my body, my whole story. I'm dropping it because it could be wrong. He cleansed himself. He dropped it all. And then what did he say? I am. I think. That's a huge moment for history. This I am is not the same as this I am here. I is a pronoun that refers to an object. That's not what he's doing. When he say I am, he is performing himself. He is his thinking. He is his pronoun. He is the script. We are script. He was I-aming. He was his very utterance. The demon couldn't get him there because he was not separated from his thoughts. He was not in a split space. He went into the non-dual integral whole place, and the demon couldn't get him. And he reached the foundations of knowledge. And that's where he said, let me start over. And the first thing he began to see from the I am is, wait a minute, that's not what's most certain, is thou art. He saw that the infinite presence was there. And that's what made it possible to have an I. The thou, the infinite thou. What is that? What we've been talking about. Tao, Om, Yahweh, Allah, Logos. Logos is from the Greek, and I use that. We don't even have a common word and a common language for the script. So I mentioned this because this already needs to be shifted. Let's start over, okay? And this took me decades to get it. And it really, Andrew, is in the line of evolving. The script is evolving. That, wait a minute, my students would say, Professor Gangadine, I've been in the zone. If this is the zone, I've been there on the athletic field as a runner. I've been a runner. I've been in a moment of running. Or the jazz musicians would say, I was ego jazzing, but then suddenly were we jazzing? It was just, we were the music. And lovers who were two became one. We know those feelings in the zone, but I don't know how to go from here to there. It looks so far away. How do I cross over? That's a big question for enlightenment, made user-friendly. And then I pointed out and began to see, wait a minute, we're always already in the space of presence. The infinite field is right here, right now, all along. Infinite presence, even here in this auditorium, in every person, in everything, every grain of sand. And that's what the geniuses began to see, that if you take any point in this field of the infinite connectivity, it's going to encode the entire field. Why? Because the calculus of the infinite is weird. You can't break a piece of Om. If you break a piece of Om, what do you got? Om. You can't bother. And if that's true, that's why William Blake saw there's infinity in a grain of sand and eternity in an hour. What does that mean? Well, time is amazing. Double bracket time is very different from broken time. We live in broken time here in this calculus because the past, the present, and the future are again named. So the past is over. The future is not here. One name, one thing. And so you can get trapped in your past. I was abused, I was injured, I was hurt, and I can't leave it. I'm living stuck in the past. Or I'm obsessing about my future mortgage or about getting into medical school. I can't live and I can't, so you can get stuck in the future. But what does enlightenment say? That if you can get the literacy of the awakened script, you will know how to be here now. That sums up all enlightenment. All of the Vedas, 3 words, be, here, now. Not here. Not in this present, because everyone knows, students know when they're obsessing about getting into medical schools and getting their coursework done, or getting out of your injured past, that all you're left with on Friday night is to get wasted. If you try to get there now. But to be now is amazing because this now is an infinite structure. Think of Eckhart Tolle's book as Popular Enlightenment, Power of Now. He's trying to get the script. I would sum up the book in one word. There's now. What does it mean? It means that past, present, and future in all moments touch in the same moment. That's how this calculus works. This PowerPoint is enormous. And you're one of them. That's why the Quakers and others say there's that of God in every person. If you think of the implications of that, and that's what shaped the culture of Haverford, the Quaker tradition. If there's that of God in every person, then every person is sacred. And then you treat them honorably. Well, that's ethics. So what does that mean? It means that this is a space where the I and the other are bound in a deep intimacy. So the space, the script of enlightenment is I-thou, not I-it. You can't help it when you objectify one another and yourself and make an object, to objectify another person as an object, even though you don't want to. So your lover is an it. So when Buber, in his wisdom, was writing, there are two ways to be human, I it or I thou. The other is a thou. What is a thou? A presence that's sacred. And that's sacred dialogue. That's a place of enlightenment. Why is that ethics? Can't I be ethical here? And the great teacher said, no, because you don't objectify a human being. You don't objectify yourself. So what is the moral law? Tend to the other as yourself. The golden rule, the global rule. Why? Enlightenment science. Which means what? Everything is profoundly connected. So what? The other is in you already. You're not an atomic separate being. You are a dialogue, ecological, interconnected being. So then when our weird teachers like Jesus were saying, when I was in prison, you visited me. When I was hungry, you fed me. And the disciples speaking this scripture said, when do we do that? When you tended to the least of mine, you tended to me. Where did that come from? Well, that was Buddha's law too. We are interconnected. So what? To be a human, to tend to yourself is to tend to the other. That's ethics. This is huge. It means that ethics, the literacy of ethics, and all the history and centuries of moral philosophers like Kant and others were calling out the moral law. The golden rule is profoundly inscribed beyond our ordinary ways of talking and being together. The implications are enormous if this is right. And this is what I'm suggesting. Enlightenment is not a luxury we can defer anymore. If enlightenment is upscripting into the script of reality in a deeper way than we ever knew, and leaving what seems to be a cave that breaks and fragments. If I had more time, I do have more time, of course, but if I have more of this, you almost caught me. If I had more time, and I'm going to wrap up, that I would share, which is astounding. When I say when you move into this space, you find astounding disclosures that single bracket technology of scripting and using our minds fragments everything in our lives and creates profound ontological illness and dysfunction. And it's astounding, because if our children come to us with their open eyes and hearts and say, Mommy, help me, teach me, and we start to school them in the cultural script, what are we doing to our children? What are we doing to each other? What are we doing to our ecology? That's all sacred, because if you hear, everything is profoundly connected and sacred. So that the fallout is enormous. And our Enlightenment teachers knew this, that to be in this place of suffering is enormous violence and a violation of ourselves, and it's inherently dysfunctional. And so the call to upscript is a call out into our evolution and maturation as a species, which is my topic. You know, the awakening of global enlightenment, the maturation of our species. So the path of enlightenment across the planet has a common convergence with all of its diversity. It's calling us to move into the higher script of integrity. Why? Because in the infinite space, everything is profoundly connected in a profound unity. And there's a script that goes with it. And that is the script in literacy that has been emerging for centuries in our cultures across the planet. And I think I will just try to wrap it up at this point. And I hope this makes sense. This is to open up conversation. And I really, in reading Andrew's book, I'm really thrilled to see the amazing, what he's doing is to say evolutionary enlightenment. Just to put those two words together is amazing. It means that enlightenment is not a state of mind. It's not a mental state. That all our mental states are here. Enlightenment is a different way to flow with reality. And that's the call of evolution. Why? And this is my final. When you write your name, whatever it is, whatever cultural situation you're in, remember that your higher self is already with you. It's never far apart. And the path of enlightenment is to step back from the rigid fixation of your story, to drop it sufficiently to realize you're already in the zone. Your self is with you at all times, your high self. Why? What's the science? And this is the final remark. It's because the infinite field, whatever name we give it, the Tao, Om, Allah, yeah, and science, nature, whatever name we use, I use a logos from the Greek, is presence. The infinite force is presence. Not present, but presence. And the basic science is you can never step outside of the infinite flow. So what? The greatest force on the planet is the force of the infinite, operating in every iota at all times. And I believe that Andrew is picking up on this as well. That's the evolutionary impulse. We're being called by the force of presence wherever we are. And so the journey of enlightenment and evolution is to move from this stage into this stage. And that's our maturation as humans. And every major step in culture has been a step from this to that. And I wish I could have time to go on with that, but thank you very much for your attention.